Hi and welcome back to Cheyenne Life. This is Debbie and this is very much early in the morning. I am out here and you remember that there was some dill that went all around the front here that I talked about in front of my beans. Well, I went ahead and took it out because I have 6 pepper plants in here and I want those pepper plants to actually produce, and the dill was getting very unruly and very tall and kind of shading it out. So I went ahead and took the dill out, and I still have part of the patch because I planted all along the front over here in this section. Now I may go ahead and take it out right here as well, which I think I'll go ahead and do because I have a tomato plant right here, a German queen tomato, and it is also getting shaded out by the dill because dill can get really, really tall. This is mammoth dill, and sometimes this dill will get 3 feet, 4 feet tall and just bush out all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of that out because it is shading out some of my other plants. And I wanted to show one of the projects that I was working on yesterday. I was out working in the garden pretty much all day yesterday, from the time that I got up until late in the evening, except for a dinner break and supper. So anyway, I had worked on a trellis for the other beans because I have another row of long pole beans here. And I have ran out of straight sticks. As you can see over there, I have a pile of brush and debris that I've collected all through the yard. And that is my modified kind of compost pile. Anyway, I have a pile over there, and I just don't have any more straight sticks left because I've tried to use a lot of my own natural poles this year. Out of that collection, which I have through here, but I also had to end up buying stakes as well this year because my stakes from the years previous, I've had them for about 5 years, started deteriorating. I still have a lot of them that are still fine and use those, but then I had to go ahead and purchase some more stakes because I have 35 tomato plants, and then plus some trellises that I needed to make. And in fact, I still need to make a trellis for my peas. Now I could leave them without a trellis because peas do not get very tall. They get about 3 feet, and they will, especially with the Cascadia, they will interweave with each other and make their own type of trellis, but they're still kind of unruly and all over the place. I may leave them. That little section right there is just for peas, so that's a possibility that could happen. I've got 3 rows in there right now, and I'm getting ready to plant 2 more rows just to have some later peas. Anyway, in my green beans here, I went ahead, or long pole beans, made a trellis, and I just used 3 stakes and some natural rope twine. And what I did was I did a modified Florida weave. So I have a weave on the bottom that's holding up the basically the roots and part of the plant, as you can see, kind of interweaved in there. And then on the top section, I made a net, just a squared net of ropes. So we do have runners already climbing those ropes. We have a couple there and over there, and they really needed it because yesterday was the video that I had published, and I didn't have the trellis up yet, and my beans were just becoming a mess because they just had so many runners on them. So I just needed the trellis, and I went ahead and did that yesterday. Now it is a lot of work to do the trellis, but it is fairly easy. You're just putting 3 long twine through the holes and then interconnecting with sections of rope twine down the other sections. You want those little places for the beans to run up on, and it's really sturdy. Let me go ahead and show you how sturdy. This barely moves, and this is very, very tight, as you can see there. So plenty of sturdiness there. If you run into an issue of where the beans get taller than the actual netting, then you can interweave them back down on themselves. So you can run them back down and then back up again. So shouldn't be any problem there with sturdiness. But pretty interesting. It's all natural, just some stakes and some rope twine, which I like to do. I actually do not like, I have some metal trellises over there. I do not like metal trellises for beans to run up because there is rust and things that occurs on the metal trellises, and rust or copper and things like that can harm beans growing, especially their leaves and even their runners. I've had beans die off completely because of a trellis that I had that had a high content of copper in the past. So that is going on there. And then I did go ahead and support my sunflowers. Now I had, I think, one sunflower that died off. There is a group of 4 in each of these groups of sunflowers, and 2 of the sunflowers, from each group, had fallen over already. So it's probably the wind. And I went ahead and pulled up some dirt around the base a little bit more, and it looks like I'm going to have to take out one of those sunflowers that just probably got some root damage. When root damage occurs, that kills off the sunflower. So as you can see there, we've got some wilted leaves, so that sunflower has died off. But I still have 3 in that group, and then I have 4 in this group, and I did manage to save that one that had fallen over on that group. And then I have some more interplanted in between some of the rows here. But everything is looking great. Got the trellises up and running, taking out some of the dill so it doesn't shade out some of the pepper plants and that tomato plant. And all is looking good. And I also wanted to mention the container garden. I had started a video yesterday about the container garden, but unfortunately had run out of time on it, and the video just became corrupted. Sometimes that happens when you run to time. These phones will only do about 10 to 15 minutes of video at a time. So anyway, looking at the container garden, looks like my cilantro in the pot didn't do as well as I'd hoped that it would. It had already went to seed or went to bloom. And I could cut the blooms off and just bush it off even more, but unfortunately it will just continue to try to bloom. Cilantro is kind of like that. When you have it initially go to bloom and you try to cut the blooms off to get more bushiness out of it, it'll just keep blooming, kind of like parsley will do. My parsley's already went to blooming again, and now I can cut those off and probably get some more production out of my parsley, but at this point, I think I might just leave it and let it go on to seed, because I do want that patch to get a little bit larger. And everything's looking great in the containers. Wanted to show a quick shot of this was supposed to have been lemon balm and lemon mint, both in this pot. But either the lemon balm or the lemon mint has taken over completely, and I think it's the lemon balm. I had thought initially that it was a lemon mint, but I'm pretty sure it's the lemon balm. It smells the same as my lemon balm that I have out in my herb patch, and this was my daughter's planting, and I think every single one of the lemon balm seeds came up, but I don't think any of the mint came up. So it is just massive at this point. I've even seen, I think, a bloom head starting on one of them, but just massive, just beautiful. And I did want to show you that mini rose that I had picked up that is a lavender color. As you can see here, that is very lavender. And it has some more blooms that are coming up on it right now. Just beautiful. And I've got 3 mini roses, and I've now put them together. This one in the center will be blooming, I believe it was peach, and then the one on the outside is red. And that one had already bloomed and gone, so it's now setting some more leaves and will probably bloom again before the summer's out. Also, I did tie up my tomato plants yesterday, even though they're in cages. I still like to go ahead and secure their stems to a pole. So I just run a pole down through the center of each one of the tomato cages, and then I go ahead and tie them to the stake, and that just gives them some extra stability, keeps them going from too wild in the garden, and you can just continue, and it helps to hold the plants up while you can weave the leaves and things like that up into the next tiers of each of the tomato cages. So wanted to show that there. I just used a little bit of that natural rope twine, and I do have, I believe, every one of them done so far in this section except for the tomatillos. And this is how massive the corn has gotten. I did a feed of the corn and several of the other varieties of plants that I have in the garden just a couple days ago with basically some 20-20-20, which is an organic version of nitrogen and phosphorus and stuff like that. So anyway, did that just a couple days ago, and I believe these corn grow at least a foot. These corn are just getting really, really tall. This is the peaches and cream variety. I've got 3 strands left of the early sun glow. Sorry about that. Somebody has a Harley. You can always tell a Harley. Anyway, just beautiful, getting massive, and just lots of growth going on. And I did plant some radishes through here, and unfortunately it looks like that the watermelon and acorn squash are going to shade it out, which is okay because I really want them to do that anyway. And I've got some borage planted in there. I just started that borage like a week ago, and it came up and is just already becoming massive plants. And I've heard that it will spread in your garden, so I'm hoping that I catch it before it starts doing that, because I would like to kind of control the seed on those. And then I did plant some sage, some garden sage right here in this section, which is just now coming up. So the garden sage and the borage is the same age. I planted them on the same day, and you can see the difference. Garden sage takes a lot longer to come up, at least in my experience. Usually pushing that edge of the 10 days if it can, but it's been about 7, so they did come up. They're just really, really small. And the borage came up days ago. It was up within like 3 or 4 days of me planting it, and has already become quite massive. And pretty much the same story with the radishes as well. They were planted at the same time, and they're up and already trying to form little heads. I had gotten tired of the radish patch over next to my front door because it looked like that it just wasn't going to do anything this year because it's so shaded. So I'm going to go ahead and tear out those radishes again, and probably replace it with some lettuce since we're not getting any production out of it. And the lettuce will be slow, but it will do what it's supposed to do. So anyway, that is a look at the corn and all of the other things. And back to talking about the containers, I have just been blown away by how much growth that has occurred in the containers. I had worried, I've done a lot of research on container gardening, and there's a lot of talk about how you have to feed so often when they're in containers, as well as needing these massive containers to be able to contain 1 tomato or something like that. And basically most of my containers are this size, which is the square, and it's basically a square foot of garden space. And as you can see, I have a tomato in here. This tomato is already setting fruit. This is a cherry tomato variety, and I'm really happy with it. I've not had any issues whatsoever with these, and it may be because I started my own seed, had them in pots to begin with, and they were used to that. But I also feed them a lot. I've got Job's organic pellets, slow release in each one of the containers, including the galvanized steel containers that I have back here. And they're getting plenty of sunlight over here on my south side section. This is my kitchen door right here, and getting lots of light. Loving it over here. I did move my lemon tree over here. My lemon tree was actually on the front of the house, which is the southwest, and it is starting to put on more branches. It dropped some leaves, and then instead of the leaves, it's replacing them with branches, as you see here, which means it's going to start filling out from this section. So I don't have to cut it back anyway. It's just going to start filling out. And I did give it a bigger container, and I did go ahead and plant a cucumber in here. This is the poinsettia cucumber, and I just didn't have anywhere else to stick it, so I stuck it in there, and it's doing great. But I did go ahead and move it over here so it gets some more sunlight. The lemon tree doesn't care one way or the other. It's been in both shade and sunlight, and it didn't bother it at all. So looking forward to seeing some more growth on that cucumber, but also looking forward to seeing the branches fill out on my lemon tree. Because I'm looking at, it did have a couple of blooms this year, but it didn't set any fruit. So unfortunately not the year for it to set fruit. It's only its second year So usually they'll set fruit in their third to fifth year. So I'm still looking forward to that. And strawberries are doing great. And all of my cantaloupes in the containers, as you can see, putting on runners. Beautiful, delicious green plants. I do have some little cantaloupes in there that are being pollinated right now. You can see the blooms right in there. And just beautiful. Cucumber there. And another cantaloupe here. And then my Minnesota midget over here, that's also a cantaloupe variety. I did move it on down here so we get more light. And it's just becoming massive. So anyway, a little bit more of a garden tour, you want to say, or just also some little practical things that are going on and maybe some tips and advice. As you can see, I have a trellis there of the same system for the green beans. So we'll see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Get notifications on new videos as they come out.